People, it's your boy Ben and I'm back with another boxing video. The topic this evening is Lennox Lewis or Ike Ibeabuchi. Over the years, so many people have spoke about this. And I understand I've been working alongside Ike the past couple of months, but I'm going to keep an unbiased opinion. Off the tops of everyone's heads and off face value, most people would assume Lennox Lewis. But for most people, it's took a quick brush of a thought to come to their conclusion. So although this has drew massive speculation, we're really going to delve into the ins and outs of this. And we'll find out what was really going on at that time and where the fighters were at their careers. So I want us to focus on these specific comments right here. People focus on the larger, more complete record of a fighter without considering contextual factors like timelines, peak performance or hypothetical matchups. The phenomenon I'm describing is a type of recency bias or hindsight bias. It skews their judgment because they're comparing a complete picture to an incomplete story. Lennox Lewis's record to Ike Ibeabuchi's truncated career. I'd actually say there's a popular 6-4 split favouring Lewis, but I must challenge the reasoning. Are we considering Lennox's full resume or the Lennox who existed in 1999? My approach to judge them based on their respective records and performances in 1999 at the time Ike defeated Chris Bird is a brilliant way to level the playing field. This method ensures that timelines are considered, you're comparing their careers as they are at similar points in time, rather than conflating a prime Lewis with a relatively unfinished Ibeabuchi, and it eliminates experience bias. This focuses on their capabilities and achievements at their respective peaks rather than relying on the bigger number wins logic. By focusing on this specific milestone and timeline, I'm adding a new angle to the debate that emphasises quality over quantity and challenges the traditional narrative. It's a great way to show that while Lennox's resume may tower over Ike's overall, their paths to 20 wins and 0 losses deserves a closer, more nuanced examination. So what I'm going to do is use this to highlight the parallel pace of their careers despite Lewis's 6-year head start and greater amateur experience. Lennox Lewis turned pro in 1989 and reached 20-0 in just under 4 years, becoming WBC heavyweight champion in the process. Ike Ibeabuchi turned pro 6 years later in 1994 and reached 20-0 in just over 4 years, capping his rise with a dominant win over Chris Bird. While Lennox reached 20-0 slightly faster, the difference is marginal, just about 7 months. However, the nature of their opponents in these 20 fights matters. Lennox fought a mix of veterans and journeymen early on, while Ike defeated fighters who were prime, undefeated and stylistically challenging, with notable wins over Razor Ruddock and Tony Tucker. However, Ike defeated 2 prime undefeated fighters, David Tua and Chris Bird, by the time he had reached 20-0. Judging off the fighters' first 20 bouts, Ike's victories were more definitive in terms of defeating high caliber opponents at their peak. My conclusion is I acknowledge that Lennox's record appears more polished by the time he reached 20-0. Ike's victories arguably carry more weight in terms of difficulty and dominance, especially when looking at the timeline and context. That said, Lennox was a highly decorated amateur, including an Olympic gold medalist in 1988. This pedigree fast-tracked him into the significant fights early on in his career. Ike had a more conventional path into the pros, with his reputation primarily built on his professional fights rather than a decorated amateur career. Lennox faced tougher oppositions in Ruddock and Tucker by the time he reached 20-0, but many of his earlier fights were against lesser known fighters. Ike's trajectory was slower in terms of volume, but the quality of opponents like Tua and Bird arguably outweighs the level of many Lennox's early opponents. Lennox's rise to his first 20 culminated in him becoming the WBC champion, a testament to his polished skills and ability to navigate the heavyweight division effectively. Ike's rise to 20-0 marked the point where he proved himself as a potential threat to the entire division, particularly with his wins over Tua and Bird, which showcased his versatility against different styles. By March 1999, Lewis had notable wins over Shannon Briggs, a dangerous fighter but one whose stamina consistently was questionable, Andrew Golota, a skilled though erratic contender who had struggled mentally in big fights, and Evander Holyfield, a controversial draw in their first fight, widely seen as a robbery. Most score for it to be Lewis as a winner. Lewis had fought a variety of styles by this time, including pressure fighters, power punchers and technicians. His size, jab and ring generalship were well honoured, and his confidence as a champion was growing. The sheer volume of quality opponents on his resume adds to his credibility. His knockout loss to Oliver McCall in 1994 on a life and death struggle with Ray Mercer in 1996 revealed vulnerabilities against high pressure, relentless fighters. He hadn't yet faced someone with the exact blend of power, durability and work rate that Ibeabuchi brought to the table. By the time Ike defeated Chris Bird in March 1999, his most notable wins included David Tua, undefeated at the time and considered one of the most dangerous heavyweights due to his power and chin. Ike outworked him in one of the most grueling heavyweight fights in history, setting a world record for punches thrown. Chris Bird, a slick, elusive southpaw and future heavyweight champion, Ike's ability to cut off the ring and stop Bird proved he wasn't just a brawler, he could adjust to technical fighters too. Ike had a rare combination of durability, relentless pressure and stamina. His ability to throw over 900 punches in a fight as a heavyweight is staggering. His chin was untested at elite levels over time but looked indestructible against Tua and Bird. He was fearless and fought with the kind of aggression that could rattle even the most composed opponents. But he had a limited number of fights compared to Lewis. While his wins over Tua and Bird were incredible, his resume lacked the same depth as Lennox's, and there were questions about how he'd handle someone with Lewis's combination of size, reach and technical skill. So the question is, does Lennox's record tower over Ike's? It's fair to say that Lewis's record in 1999 is more impressive in terms of volume and names defeated. However, Ike's record is arguably more impressive in terms of quality per opponent, given the context. Both Tua and Bird were undefeated and in their primes when Ike beat them. Some of Lewis's wins came against fighters with flaws or inconsistencies like Briggs and Golota that Ike's opponents didn't have at that time. The conclusion. When would have been the best time for them to fight and who would have won? And there's one date that personally comes straight to my mind. The 12th of July 1997, coincidentally my exact birthday. This day was a pivotal moment in heavyweight boxing. Lennox Lewis, 31-1, was defending his WBC title against Henry Akinwande, a fight that ended in disappointment with a 5th round disqualification. But imagine in an alternate reality where Lennox stepped into the ring that night against the 17-0 Ike Ibeabuchi, fresh off his victory over David Tua and holding the WBC International Heavyweight title. Now that would have been a fight worth celebrating. Not only would this have been a showdown between a rising star and a reigning champion, but it could have been a unification bout, combining the WBC, IBC and WBC International Heavyweight titles. A fight of this magnitude would have cemented the winner as the defining force of the division. While history gave us Lewis vs Akinwande, which ended in a disqualification, the thought of watching a prime Ike and a dominant Lennox go head to head on my birthday feels like a missed opportunity for one of the greatest heavyweight clashes of the 90s. Stakes feel authentic and significant, and the idea of revisiting that moment in boxing history makes for a captivating conclusion. Lennox Lewis's record at 31-1 up to the 12th of July 1997 indeed shows that while he faced some strong names, the level of competition isn't necessarily far superior to what Ike Ibeabuchi faced on his way up to 20-0. Let's break this down in detail. Razor Ruddock, KO round 2 1992, a marquee victory. Ruddock was coming off competitive fights with Mike Tyson and was considered a dangerous puncher, making this one of Lennox's most impressive wins. Tony Tucker, unanimous decision 1993. Former IBF champion, but Tucker was past his prime when he faced Lewis. Still, this was a solid win. Frank Bruno, TKO round 7 1993. A tough game opponent but not an elite heavyweight, Bruno was known for fading in big fights and Lennox eventually overwhelmed him. Tommy Morrison, TKO round 6 1995. Morrison had power but was inconsistent and defensively vulnerable. Ray Mercer, majority decision 1996. A close controversial decision. Mercer arguably exposed vulnerabilities in Lennox's inside game. Oliver McCall, KO round 2 1994. Lennox suffered a shocking knockout loss due to overconfidence and poor preparation. While he avenged this loss in 1997, McCall's mental state in the rematch overshadowed the victory. Fighters like Phil Jackson, Levi Billups and Lionel Butler were solid but not top tier. These were largely tune-up fights designed to keep Lennox busy. Akinwade, disqualification round 5 1997. Akinwade's disqualification was disappointing and didn't add much credibility to Lennox's resume. David Tua, unanimous decision 1997. This was a career-defining fight. Tua was undefeated in his prime and a highly dangerous puncher. Ike not only withstood Tua's power but also outworked and outboxed him in one of the most grueling heavyweight fights of all time. What's notable is the world record for the most thrown and land punches. Chris Bird, TKO round 5 1999. Bird was a future heavyweight champion with exceptional defensive skills and ring IQ. Ike's ability to cut off the ring and stop Bird was an impressive feat against an awkward opponent. While Ike's earlier fights were against lesser known competition, such as Marion Wilson, who went 12 rounds against Evander Holyfield, all the way to Duncan Dokawari before he became pro. His rise was steady and his victories over Bird and Tua significantly bolstered his credibility. Lennox had struggled in high pressure situations before, example Ray Mercer fight, and Ike's chin meant Lennox couldn't simply overpower him early. Lennox's ability to control range with his jab would be crucial. If he would keep Ike at bay and pick him apart from a distance, he might neutralise Ike's pressure. Lennox had already been knocked out once and shown vulnerability under pressure. While his skills and adaptability were top tier, he was not invincible. Ike, on the other hand, was still untested in terms of championship level competition. While his chin held up against Tua's power, Lennox's combination of size, power and technique would present an entirely new challenge. Lennox's WBC title was on the line and he was in the process of solidifying his reign. For Ike, this would have been a massive step up, a chance to prove himself as the real deal against an established champion. For fans, it would have been a spectacle, a rising, undefeated contender versus a seasoned champion in a bout that could have redefined the heavyweight landscape. Undefeated fighter would play a huge role. When you take a closer look at the timelines and context, the argument for Ike Ibeabuchi becomes significantly more compelling. By 1997, Ike was 17-0 and just defeated David Tua in one of the most intense heavyweight bouts of that era, showcasing his ability to handle pressure and outlast a relentless, powerful opponent. His blend of raw strength, endurance and determination made him a force that even seasoned champions would struggle to neutralise. Lennox Lewis, while an outstanding champion, had shown moments of vulnerability up to that point, including his loss to Oliver McCall. Against someone as aggressive and relentless as Ike, those vulnerabilities could have been exploited. Ibeabuchi's unbroken momentum and lack of wear and tear gave him an edge in energy and unpredictability, an essential factor in a hypothetical clash against a more experienced yet battle-worn opponent. Given the timeline, styles and the hunger Ike displayed in his career, I believe he had all the tools to upset Lennox Lewis in 1997. This isn't to downplay Lennox's greatness, but to highlight that in boxing, context and timing can shift the odds. A fight like this would have been historic, and while we can only speculate, it's clear that Ike Ibeabuchi had the potential to shock the world and reshape the heavyweight legacy. So overall, it's give or take, people. In my opinion, that potential could have turned this hypothetical 50-50 matchup into Ike's defining victory. But what do you think? Would Ike's unstoppable momentum would have been enough to dethrone Lennox at his peak? Or would Lewis's experience and tactical brilliance have carried the day? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Share your analysis, your predictions, and which points you think tip the scales in this dream matchup. If you haven't already, go and check out my page and subscribe. If you're interested in following the legacy of Ike Ibeabuchi. If you don't know already, he's making a return fight on the 7th of December. I've been having interviews with Ike on my YouTube page leading up to this. And the promotional trailer video came out 2 days ago, so go and check that out. If you've watched up to this point, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much and God bless.